The draft National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 is ready. Central Bank of Nigeria says circular on conversion of domiciliary account to Naira fake. COVID-19 federal government relaxes restriction on foreign travelers. Oil prices climb on Monday to a one-week high, just as gold ages up on a weaker bond yields. Plus, Business Express takes a look at the role of banking and finance in economic recovery. Details of this and more on Business Express on the network service of the NTA. We're reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Musa Abubakar. The Center for Social Justice has recommended direct allocation of foreign exchange earned from crude oil sales to the 3 tiers of government as a way to stem the continued devaluation of the Naira against major international currencies to reduce inflation and excess liquidity. This follows the unveiling of 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper projected to expend the sum of 13.981 trillion naira in 2022. The Director, Center for Social Justice, Eze Oyekpere, made the recommendation while briefing newsmen on the analysis made by Center on the federal government's 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper and key recommendations on the timing of the MTEF and other key macroeconomic projections.
AGR or however they make it, federal government will see, everybody will see, their management will see, so that they can no longer hide. And then you say, don't spend more than 50% of your revenue. So that will now be clear. Out of that, their 50%, federal government can now take 75% of it for their own use, and then leave them with 25% of it for capital projects or whatever they want to do, or for reserves, to build up reserves for future expenditure. So that is the position that the federal government is pursuing and which we fully support.
Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has assured members of the public that it will not convert the foreign exchange in the domiciliary accounts of customers into Naira as falsely purported on social media. A circulation purportedly issued by the CBN claimed that the regulator had directed deposit money banks and international money transfer operators to convert domiciliary account holdings into Naira. In a circular issued on Saturday, the CBN said it would never contemplate such a line of action, adding that the speculation was completely false and aimed at triggering panic in the foreign exchange market. The circular, signed by the Director of Corporate Communication, Owasubi, it read in part, and I quote, "We wish to reiterate that the bank has not contemplated and will never contemplate any such line of action," end of quote. Now, the draft National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 aim at lifting millions of Nigerians out of poverty and ensure economic stability is ready. To this end, the federal government has commenced the process of its validation by ministries, departments and agencies under the chairmanship of Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa.
Today's validation exercise is therefore designed for all of us to review the extent to which our inputs have been captured in the system.
It is also important to inform that the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 provides for implementation of major infrastructure and other development projects across the geopolitical zones and opening up of opportunities for the rural areas to ensure inclusive development and increase competitiveness.
The federal government has relaxed a restriction on foreign travelers without evidence of payment for their COVID-19 PCR test. In a memo signed by Director General of Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, Musa Nuhu stated foreign airlines were asked to board passengers without evidence of payment for day 7 COVID-19 PCR test or generate permit to fly. No said the decision was taken in view of the challenges some travelers to Nigeria are experiencing while trying to fill their health and travel history into Nigeria's international travel portal. Earlier, foreign travelers were required to show proof of payment for their COVID-19 PCR test before they were boarded. He, however, said such passengers will be required to make payment for the repeat day 7 COVID-19 PCR test at their destination airport in Nigeria. The Senate has asked the Nigerian Communications Commission to take advantage of the national policy for fifth generation network to generate 350 billion naira for the federal government in the 2022 fiscal year. This was the verdict of the Senate Joint Committees working on the 2022-2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper when the management of the NCC appeared before the panels of the Red Chamber. The chairman of the Joint Committees, Senator Solomon Adiola, said the 2022 budget of the NCC will no longer be 115 billion naira, but about 350 billion naira, as there must be projection for the sale of the spectrum following the launch of the 5G network. The federal government on Wednesday approved the national policy for fifth generation network to boost the country's digital economy. Dr. Bayo Olubemi is the President and Council Chairman of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN. Together we shall be looking at the role of banking and finance in the economic recovery process. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you very much.
Now,
I'm happy to be here.
You're welcome. What opportunities and challenges do the COVID-19 pandemic show to the banking and finance sector?
Thank you very much. Just like the other part of the economy and the world at large, it was a game changer, sort of. It brought in both negative and positive changes to our system. First and foremost, of course, there was a challenge of health for workers in the banking industry, and of course, the lockdown that we experienced, that 1 month lockdown actually affected and displaced a lot of people. However, because the banking and finance industry has always been in the forefront of digitization and technology advancement, it was very easy for us to adapt and to maybe change over almost immediately to the digital platform. Most of us in the banking industry, or most banks, either who have always been in the forefront of promoting electronic banking, digitization, share agents, network expansion, which is SANEF, which made banking to penetrate into the communities, into the local governments by having agent bankers all around, using the phones and using online banks. So it was a challenge for us to adjust, but almost immediately we were able to adjust, because a lot of people had to do their banking.
How do you get to manage the rural areas? Because
yes, the rural areas. We today you have telephone penetration has gone a long way, so that really helps us, because most of the banks have actually moved to the online platform using mobile money. So it was easy. Even during the pandemic, people were still withdrawing money one way or the other using the agent banker. So, but this also brought in a lot of banks having to invest heavily on infrastructure, on technology, on software, and on different apps to make banking seamless for the banking public.
Okay, now what role is the banking and finance sector playing in the recovery process?
Thank you very much. Of course, banking and finance is actually the engine of economic growth in any economy at all. Because what do? We get money from the surplus sector of the economy, the big men like you, and we lend it to the deficit sector of the economy. So, since the COVID started, both our regulator, which is CBN, and all the banks have actually been in the forefront of making money available in terms of credits to households. There are a lot of programs that CBN set up even before COVID, but with the advent of COVID, they were increased. One of the things that they did was to ask banks to kind of give more 1 year moratorium for those people who are the sectors of the economy, the businesses that have been given the credit, so that they will be able to recuperate from the backlash of the COVID. And also CBN brought in a lot of different funds, the HMIS, this agri business and small medium enterprises fund, which also ensure that interest rates were reduced from 9% to 5% for 1 year. However, when CBN saw that 1 year was not enough to recover, it has been extended for another 1 year. So people who gave both households and businesses that took that opportunity to take credit from banks are actually paying 5% instead of the cut to 21%, 12% that was being paid in the time past. And there's a lot. There's what we call the Anchor Borrowers Program, which makes people to get funds to do their rice production and the rest of that. So there's a lot that the banking industry, apart from the direct contribution to COVID, to the fight against COVID. That's what we call the COVID, which is a committee of not only banks. The banks, I think, contributed about 45% of the fund that was raised by COVID to fight COVID. I mean, of course, what did we do? COVID, we were able to set up.
What about support for real sector?
Yeah, I've mentioned many of them.
Yes, and then let's talk about the bank's position towards the opportunities in the AFCFTA.
Okay, after that is African continental.
Yeah.
It will make many of the banks in Nigeria before now had established franchises or subsidiaries in some African countries. That will actually make them to increase their support for the risk sector, for the agri sector, and even for services that have been done in other nations in Africa. And after we makes it easier, I believe so, at the end of the day, for us to trade amongst ourselves. And when there is trade among ourselves, of course, there will be balance of trade. There will be inflow and outflow. And I believe at the end of the day, because we have the largest economy in Africa, and we have a lot of products, including petroleum products and agri products, that can be exported to other nations and Africa, instead of them going to Europe and America to import. So if they import from us, of course, at the end of the day, net, we will be better off in terms of inflow to our economy.
Okay,
and the banking sector, of course, will be the pipeline towards that inflow, outflow we go.
Okay, you talk about support to the real sector,
yeah,
to somehow promote financial inclusion. And what are you doing to sustain such efforts, so that people will be financially included, because COVID-19 excluded a lot of people?
Okay, I mentioned what I call SANEF. SANEF is Shared Agent Network Expansion Facilities.
Tell us about it.
The purpose of SANEF is to, you see, years ago there was what we call rural banking. They died along the line. Then we have what we call People's Bank. That along the line. Then we have what we call Microfinance Bank. Struggling. But even at that, it means you still have to go to a regular traditional banking hall to transfer business. For SANEF, what SANEF has done is to make banks, deposit money banks, to appoint agents with small kiosks in all the categories of the federation to bring banking service to the rural area. And what does that do? You can go to any kiosk that have a POS using SANEF facility and SANEF. Go there, you can deposit your money to your bank that is not even in that environment. You can withdraw money from the POS You can make payments from POS. So it means banking has been brought to the rural area, and that is the purpose of what we call financial inclusion. Because people in the rural area, if you have to spend 200 naira to come to the city to withdraw 500 naira, it doesn't make any economic sense. But with telephone penetration and SANEV, agent banks have been able to take banking directly to the rural communities, and they are better for it. Things are evolving. I'm sure today we have more than 100,000 agent bankers, one kiosk that is doing a lot of movement of money here and there.
Okay, how has the commercial banks been able to implement CBN's monetary policy with regards to the economic recovery process?
Of course, you know that CBN is the regulator,
yeah,
and they have oversight function over the banks. And if the banks are not doing what they are supposed to do, of course, there will be sanctions. And so every bank, through what we call the Bankers Committee, and luckily today we have a CBN governor that works closely with the Bankers Committee, comprising bank MDs and the rest of them. And of course, also in CIBN, we have the committee called Committee of Bank CEOs, which is led by the chaired by the MD CEO of Access Bank, Dr. Albert Wigwe. What do they do? When they check what are we supposed to do, what is CBN asking us to do? As banks, we must do it to ensure that we have growth and development in our economy. And they agree among themselves, they discuss, if there are any areas, they clarify, and of course they implement. I can assure you that all banks, through the leadership of the CBN and of course Committee of CEOs, are implementing all the monetary policies as given by CBN from time to time, because they normally agree before these things are announced.
Okay, is the evolution of a payment system, particularly driven by the fintechs, is it actually competing against our traditional way of banking?
Not really. It has actually come to enhance what the banks are doing. And one thing that is clear is that fintechs have come to stay, and we have to work together. So banks and fintechs are actually working together because they have to collaborate. Yep. So the fintech to drive their process rely on the banks to drive their process rely on fintechs, and even what we call the service money banks being promoted by telcos. So all of us are working together because it's the same goal: economic recovery, inclusion, transformation. And for us to do it, all of us must work hand in hand, and we are definitely working hand in hand.
Thank you.
Mean, there used to be a trade before, but there's no trade again. We're working together.
Thank you very much. The President and Council Chairman of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, oil prices climbed on Monday to a one-week high in a second straight session of gains as concerns over U.S. supplies following damage from Hurricane Ida supported the market, along with expectations for higher demand. Brent crude rose 48 cents to $73.40 a barrel, and U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude also added 49 cents to $70.21 a barrel. Both markets were at their highest since September 3rd, earlier in the session. Gold edges up on a weaker bond yields. Focus on U.S. inflation. Let's see prices of other commodities. Next is a summary of NGX activities in the week ended with Bossady Abel.
Investors' net worth on the Nigerian exchange NGX dropped further by 146 billion naira on the week ended 10th September 2021 due to losses posted by some major blue chips. The NGX all-share index and market capitalization simultaneously depreciated by 0.86% to close the week at 38,921.78 and 20.2 trillion naira. At a turnover of 1.4 billion shares worth 13 billion naira in 19,315 deals were traded by investors on the floor of the exchange. All other indices finished lower, with the exception of NGX consumer goods, NGX oil and gas, and NGX sovereign bond indices, which appreciated by 0.18%, 2.28%, and 0.26%, while the NGX ASM, NGX industrial goods, and NGX growth indices closed flat. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 1.1 billion shares valued at 8.2 billion naira traded in 10,700 deals. The consumer goods industry followed with 76.5 million shares worth 1.3 billion naira in 3,076 deals. The third place was the conglomerate industry with a turnover of 58.2 million shares worth 186.2 million naira. The top three equities were FBN Holdings, Access Bank, and Wema Bank. They mutually accounted for 626.7 million shares worth 4.4 billion naira in 2,802 deals. A total of 2,016 units of exchange-traded products (ETPs) valued at 537,038 naira 8 kobo were traded in the week in 10 deals, as well as 93,019 units of federal government bonds valued at 99.8 million naira were traded in 39 deals. At the end of the week's transaction, 25 equities appreciated in price, 34 equities depreciated in price, while 97 equities remained unchanged.
The capital market for Monday closed at negative. The all-share index declined 0.02% at 38,915.62 basis point, and market capitalization at 20.2 trillion naira, 201 million shares, value at 2.5 billion naira, exchange hands in 3,340 deals. Now the naira is fair to continue a free fall. Let's see how the naira is exchanging for other currencies. European markets started the new trading week on a positive note as Chinese tech stocks fall on regulatory fears. Let's join Ineka Oko for more on markets around the world.
Hello and welcome to the Global Markets segment. Stocks in Asia were mixed on Monday, with markets in Hong Kong leading losses. The Hang Seng Index dropped 1.5% to end the trading day at 25,813.81. The Shanghai Composite gained 0.33% to end at 3,715.37, while the Nikkei 225 in Japan added 0.22%. European stocks advanced on Monday, with investors continuing to weigh up the European Central Bank's latest policy and inflation data. Germany's DAX climbed 0.65% in early trade, with London's FTSE gaining 0.48%, while CAC 40 of France topped 0.36%. European stocks indices were in positive territory during early morning trading as the S&P 500 comes off its longest daily losing streak since February. Contracts tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped 145 points. S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite also traded in positive territory. African markets started the week on a positive note, with all stocks posting gains in early trading. Well, let's see whether the continent will sustain the tempo for the rest of the week. And that's global markets.
Mr. Express returns Tuesday by 9:30 a.m. I'm Musa Abubakar saying keep thinking and doing business.